Chapter 10. Tessa burst out onto the street, having clattered down the stairs as fast as she could. With her first step out onto the pavement, she reminded herself to be careful. She couldn't call attention to herself here. She slipped into the crowd and slowed her pace to match the slow plodding of the people around her. It was maddening to do this. She wanted to run. Maybe they're both gone, anyhow, Gideon and the one following him. But no, a hooded head ducked down quickly, half a block ahead of Tessa, and she knew that had to be the follower. She stood on tiptoes and saw, far ahead, where the street sloped down another head turn. If only there were more light, maybe she could have seen a flash of golden hair, but it wasn't just the streetlights that were out. It looked like the electricity was out on the first floor of their apartment building, too. Strange, Tessa thought, creeping forward. She peered around and saw that the other lights were missing, too. The tiny glow of red that always shone in the security cameras atop the apartment door. She'd never known those to be out. Did that mean that the cameras weren't working? Even stranger, Tessa thought. She couldn't stop to figure it out. She concentrated on keeping the darting figure ahead of her in sight. She advanced one block, then two. What good does this do? Tessa despaired. I can't get past the follower to warn Gideon. Maybe I should just run over to one of the parallel streets and get ahead of the both of them. Just then, far ahead, Gideon turned a corner. He might start darting in a zigzag pattern now. He might go anywhere. If Tessa tried to run ahead on a parallel street, she might lose him. So I just watch? Some of the old books Tessa had gotten from her grandparents' apartment had been spy novels. Tessa didn't think anyone made such things now, but she'd read lots of the old ones. The stories were full of spies tailing one another and double agents taking advantage of the element of surprise. That's what I have on my side, Tessa thought. If the follower tries to do anything to Gideon, I'll run up to them and make a big scene, and Gideon will be able to get away. Tessa's heart pounded at the thought of the immense courage that would require, but she kept going, farther and farther from home, darting around corners behind the follower behind Gideon. Nothing to link you, Tessa remembered from Gideon's note, but it did seem they were linked now, all three of them. Gideon to the follower and the follower to Tessa, every bit as distinctly as if they were clinging to a rope slung between them. The areas around them grew dodgier. Tessa lived in a bad neighborhood, an ugly neighborhood, but it was mostly that way just because of neglect. The people in her neighborhood had given up. In the building she passed now, the decay and decrepitude seemed like an active thing, of violence lurking in the air. There were smashed windows, gaping holes in walls, burn marks on bricks, abandoned factories with obscenities scrawled on every surface. The crowds thinned out, too. All the evil intent and despair distilled into a smaller and smaller number of people. Tessa shivered and drew the hood of her sweatshirt farther up, partially hiding her face. She hunched over slightly, trying to disguise the fact that she was a girl. Well, look at you, someone said, the innocent words laced with such menace that they seemed to be saying something else entirely. Tessa flinched. Gideon would come to my rescue if I cried out, wouldn't he? She wondered. And then she was disgusted with herself, because wasn't she there to rescue him? Was she so helpless that she couldn't survive someone speaking to her? Automatically, she glanced ahead, scanning the crowd for another glimpse of Gideon. Gideon was gone. Tessa almost gasped, but the follower didn't seem puzzled. The follower scurried 3 steps forward and then darted into the dark alley. I'm a fool, Tessa thought, and stepped blindly after the others. Tessa stood for a moment at the edge of the alleyway, hoping her eyes would adjust. When they didn't, when the darkness before her stayed inky and indecipherable, her brain threw something at her from one of those old spy novels she'd read. It's not like the street behind me is all that bright, but anyone looking out from this alley would see my silhouette. She dropped down to the ground, her hands and knees landing in a puddle. She told herself it was only water, but that was probably too much to hope for. She stayed low and listened, her ears straining to make up for everything she couldn't see. She heard voices. First Gideon's, tight and almost angry. That was the price we agreed on. Then a stranger's, low and indistinct. Tessa edged closer, deeper into the darkness. She moved slowly, her hands sweeping out before her. Her fingers brushed sleek, curved metal, the side of some sort of vehicle. In this part of the city, she would have expected rusted fenders, smashed up bumpers, but this vehicle, whatever it was, didn't seem to have so much as a dent. I know what I'm doing, Gideon said, the anger almost palpable in his voice. Tessa thought that he and whoever he was talking to, the follower, someone else, were probably several feet away. She couldn't get too close for fear of running into one of them in the darkness. Footsteps sounded, coming back toward Tessa. Desperately, Tessa felt down on the lower side of the vehicle. Maybe she could hide underneath it. Lower, lower. Her fingers hit some sort of latch, and a door slid open with a tiny whoosh of air. The footsteps were getting higher. The footsteps were getting closer. You don't have the slightest idea what's going on here, Tessa's brain screamed at her. It's something dangerous. Hide! Tessa slipped in through the open door. She felt a seat before her, a leather seat maybe, and she scooted past it. She felt around, discovering a wide, flat, open space behind the seat. Maybe this was a van? Then Tessa found a padded column in the open space, and she shifted over to crouch on the other side of that. Just in time, too, because the next time she heard the voices, they seemed to be coming from the open doorway. I know how to operate it perfectly well, Gideon said. There was a soft thump. Gideon stepping into the vehicle. We'd hate to see you destroy your investment, the stranger replied, and this time he was close enough that Tessa could understand every word. His voice was oily and untrustworthy. We'd have your best interest at heart. Gideon snorted. I didn't pay you enough for that, he muttered. Something clicked, and the barest amount of light glowed from near the seat in the front. Tessa huddled lower. Her foot touched something soft, a blanket, and she pulled it over herself. There was another soft click, the door closing. Tessa listened hard, desperate to know if the stranger had been sealed inside or outside, but no more voices spoke. The floor vibrated softly beneath Tessa, as some sort of engine purred to life. The vehicle moved, forward at first, and then, as it went faster and faster, not just forward, but also up.